Namaste and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. And Sat means truth, Logos means the study or science, Sattology means the science of truth, study of truth. It's a true antonym of mythology, which means the science of fake lie imagination or study of fake lie imagination. Logos has many, many different meanings as I'm writing my new book and I'm discovering it. Now, we have a very special guest, a very famous author, and also a analyst in many political circles of India, very popular on the Indian television. So, without delay, let us welcome Shri Ratan Sharda.
Namaskar.
So,
Namaskar.
Namaskar. So Ratanji, like people, most of the times we are seeing that most of the Indian Americans or Hindu origin people outside India are more worried about India than about their local political issues and local identity. So, to give them some faith, or so I was talking to somebody else in India just now, and they were laughing. I said, it doesn't matter to us. Our life is going on. America doesn't define our destiny. That's what they say. What is your view on how Indians view American politics and America as a whole? And also, are they scared of American sanctions or Chinese sanctions or Chinese anything like that?
Aditya, good morning from my side. For you, it's good evening. And for the first time, I think I'm recording in Indian morning, so it's a different feeling. Anyway, the main point is that I have said earlier also, I have said multiple times on your channel and also to Indians from USA and UK, etc., especially in the Western Hemisphere, that they need to worry more about what is happening in their own society, how they are being looked upon, how they are being, either victimized or phobic content created against them, or whether they are given due space with all the kind of support they have given to that particular country as immigrants in terms of wealth, in terms of education, in terms of enlightenment. And India can take care of it or itself. They need not worry about Indian politics. They have to worry about the politics of the land where they're settled. For example, people in Fiji, people in Mauritius, people of Indian origin, they are part of the political life there. They are in power there in most of the even many of the Trinidad, Tobago, etc. Those countries. And if they can settle there, they can merge in the society and also be part of the political process. And in fact, on the side of the power, then why other Indians cannot look at this? Because after all, they are now part of that society. India is their inspiration. Bharat is their land of inspiration, their Punya Bhumi, in the sense that they still long for that particular spiritual connect. But on the side of sociology, on the side of social and economic and academics and their future professions for themselves and for their children, they are part of that society. And if they are not being looked upon as the right people, despite all the wonderful work they have done and got themselves assimilated in the society, then they have to rethink. As far as politics of US is concerned, as I said earlier, the earlier wave of immigrants, especially in USA, since we are in USA, I'll talk about USA, came as I'm not talking the very early Sikh settlements who came as farmers and acquired huge lands and are now big landlords. But the next real wave which started during the 60s when people came as professionals, scientists, doctors, and they were trying to settle in a society which had hardly any space or understanding of the Indians and the Hindus. So they worked hard to settle themselves. They were isolated. They lived like an island in the society. And they had hardly any connect with the local society, local people. But as they settled, they slowly opened up. They had wonderful relations with the local society, also with the local politicians. And then the next generation, which is born Indian there, American Indians who are born there, they are much more American than their parents. They have a longing for India only in terms of spirituality because they can't identify what is India doing today, but they can identify more with what is happening in USA, what is their life there, and their thinking is also conditioned by the American conditions. So if this is the scenario, then these people who are now in politics or people who are taking very active interest in politics since I would say last 20 years, then they need to look at how they are positioned, how they're situated in that particular socio-political environment. And I don't think the strength of Indian Americans and USA is really reflected in the way it should in the US political circles, in terms of their influence, in terms of their presence. There may be some members of of the cabinet now of the US president, also some governors, maybe some Senate members. But as Hindu, as Indians, is their identity strong enough to push any agenda that takes care of the issues that concern their the very the very way they are looked upon by the American society, because the academics are totally anti-Hindu. Hindu-phobic content is churned regularly. Till Rajiv Malhotra ji came on the scene and exposed the entire academic games being played in USA, nobody knew what's happening there. So if you have revered figures like Ramakrishna Paramahansa being ridiculed or wrongly presented, or your entire Indology, your entire philosophy is presented from people who don't know Sanskrit, who don't understand Sanskrit, who are relying on some third-party translations, those Western people have no concept of Indian terminology, Indian concept. If they are trying to interpret Hindu Dharma for us, naturally they will not be able to do it in the way we do it, because their glasses, their glass through which they look at us is Western glass, a biblical glass. And that is the reason we find a huge dichotomy between what Indian community is and how it is presented. This is where Indians need to work on. That is my opening statement.
No, Ratanji, very well put it, and I think the point is that you said it very clearly, and I have been saying it a lot in my talks here, that we have to focus locally in our local issues and our local identity. India is a large country, 1.3 billion, four times bigger than United States, and actually US and Europe combined, it's bigger than that. And so they can take care of themselves, and the way the Indian governments are working, and they'll take care of themselves. Now another issue comes in is that, and I'm talking about the local Western issues, Western countries issue. You said it rightly. We as a community have not asked what we need as a community. The local policymakers are practically not aware of what we need to ask, not even aware. Secondly, the biggest problem is that the we as a community do not unite on key important. There is no political movement within our community that can take it to the grassroots level at the American or Western policymakers. What is your view on how they can develop that?
See, interestingly, we had discussed this issue during the election of the presidential election of USA.
Right.
And as far as I know, on the portal of President Biden, who was at that time a candidate of Democratic Party, there was mention of Islamic community, there was mention of every other community possible, but there was no mention of Hindus or Indians as a community on his electoral portal. And Indians, 75% Indians were and actually supported Biden and Kamala Harris. Not only that, they donated very freely, they contributed to Democratic Party, and they canvassed for them very, very aggressively and very happily. But if they don't realize that they are not even represented on the portal of a candidate, then they have to think whether they are doing what they are doing is right, or whether they're just splashing their hands around. Like you said, they don't know what to ask. If they could not ask why we are not on the portal of the presidential candidate for whom we are working, that is a serious issue. If they contribute to somebody who abuses India in the name of human rights or Kashmir or any other issue, then they need to think who are they financing. And now, as new issues arise, are they able to talk to the same senators, same congressmen whom they supported, whom they voted, and whom they helped win? So this is something that they have to look at. So when you talk about, you asked me the question about what Indians need to know to ask for. As I said, they need to see to it their image is presented positively, the way they actually work within the society, integrating with the society, and doing their best, not only in terms of their own families, but also in terms of providing service to the society. That is the basic fundamental issue. Unless they know that if they can't impress upon their social personality, their religious personality, their spiritual and knowledge personality to the American society, then they being there in the politics, to my mind, doesn't matter.
Good point you said. And one of the things is like the people who voted for them, they need to ask more and they cannot complain. And they are the people who are complaining to us that why didn't you ask? At that time, they never listened to us. I was very clear that before you give your money or vote, photo ops is not the best way. Now, coming to another
Yes,
point here.
Aditya, as far as Indians are concerned, we are known for diverse views. We love to be diverse. We love to have four people, love to have five opinions. That is specialty of Indians. As very famous, very earlier Pracharak of RSS used to jokingly say that four Hindus look in one direction only when fifth one is on their shoulders. At one time, that is the situation. So, if they are having two political parties to talk about, Democrats and Republic, that is not a problem. But communities can have common agenda, they can have common views where they cannot differ. So whether I support a Republican Party, whether I support Democrat Party as a community, my interest cannot change. My interest cannot be really very different from each other. From the points that I have raised, I don't think any Hindu will have any difference of opinion what I have said. I have met Muslim community leaders in USA. They are very clear about their agenda. They are very clear what they are going to ask from a particular party. I do not know whether they voted for the same party or they voted for different parties, but they were very clear what they want from the community, from the society for themselves and as a community, and I really appreciate it.
So, coming to the international viewpoints, like the when you come to the Israel, every Indian is seem to be impressed with Israel. It's a very small country just one third of Mumbai or less than that in terms of population. Now, if we look at the politics of Israel and what role America plays for Israel, same rules cannot be applied to India because the India has 1.3 billion people, much bigger population, is a much bigger land mass. Plus, the Indian military and economy, everything is much bigger than Israel. Israel needs America for everything. They cannot set up large plants to manufacture ammunition, planes, and all those kinds of things. Not possible for them. But for now it changes completely for India because the India has everything else. In very few Indians know that after Russia, India has the largest military industrial complex in Asia. It's not China, it's India. But if they so is it sensible enough for Indians, even in America, to look for America to support India? It should be the other way around. I mean, India should support America. What do you think? Change of perspective is needed here.
See, people realize that foreign policy is not something that is part of loyalty to a particular country or a particular people. Foreign policy is basically about every nation's own self-interest. US knows its self-interest. So despite talking big about democracy, it has supported all the totalitarian governments, all the fascist governments, all the governments which are highly communal in the sense they don't support the local communities. They have the smaller communities have no human rights. You have Pakistan, for example, whom USA is finding very difficult to cut off, and this is true of all the regimes who they supported. So they know, but they knew that China is going to be a big competition, but in the economic interest, they made it friends, and even now they find it very hard to condemn it in the terms what it has done regarding the Wuhan virus disaster. So they know they care about their own self-interest. India too has to care about our own self-interest. America can support smaller countries because they are not competition. To America, still that idea of competition, of idea being the supreme power, doesn't leave it. So they will like to cooperate with India, but the fear that India can go very strong and can be a competition is something that is very discomforting. So though they would support India as a democratic country, though they know that India has the best possible democratic tradition and friendship that is really true for Americans, which they should like. But at the same time, they don't want you to rise enough to be a challenge in terms of global power. Though India has never aspired to be a global power in the sense of militaristic power. That same fear keeps them, trying to now keep China down and take support of India. But that is not the true strategy. For them, the true strategy is that two democratic countries must work together because that is the way to provide peace and to provide prosperity to every other country if They stop being the sole policemen of the world and try to push their agenda on every country they like. Earlier, mostly it was economic strength, the material strength they wanted, whether it's natural resources. So whether it's oil or minerals, that is the reason Africa is suffering. That is the reason Middle East is suffering. And this particular issue keeps them quiet about other issues also, human rights issues, I said, whether it's Pakistan, whether it's Afghanistan or China, they don't worry about that. So India, by its own strength, needs to be supported by America in its own interest, because China is relentlessly trying to become number one. More or less, I would say that in terms of their economic power, they are really as good as number one now. Industrial complex, yes. So America has to really look at itself and realize its strength, its power it had. And this pussyfooting about the fascist regimes and totalitarian regions in interest of natural resources somewhere has to be balanced. The interest of somehow keeping relations with China because it's a manufacturing hub. America was a big manufacturing hub once. So saving a few dollars is more important for America, or looking at security of its own people and people around the world, especially on the periphery of China, is more important. That US has to understand. And to make that understand, Indian community there has to become more active in political and all the various political affairs situation, and educate them why they need to have closer cooperation with India, rather than seeking, saying that they should help, India. It's a mutual best interest tie-up. It is neither favoring each other. Once they understand that trying to somehow stop its industrial progress, somehow try to create hurdles in its progress with using some NGO or the other NGO, that has to be monitored. So there is this front where Indians can work and impress upon American politicians that it is in their own interest that India and America work together. That is the basic underlining factor of the two relations. Everything else about having traditions and all doesn't work for America. America understands the self-interest, and their self-interest lies in having good relations with India and strengthening it in terms of security.
That's a very valid point. And the another statistics which is often misplaced by American politicians and Indians also, Indian Americans also. First of all, Hindus in America are not just from India. They are from Pakistan, they are from Bangladesh, they are from Fiji, they are from South America, they are from American converts to Hinduism. There are a big population out there. Many organizations, Sadgurus, many Indian gurus are very famous in America. In fact, many people put tattoos out there also on their arms nowadays.
In
The
fact,
first,
Trinidadians are one of the biggest community devotees of Sai Baba,
correct,
Uttar Pradesh Sai Baba.
correct. And so the point I'm saying is that there are inherent strengths in the US about Indian community as for themselves itself. Not to, I'm not even going to the business community, which is a altogether different powerhouse. Doctors, one in now 1 in 6 doctor is in Indian now. 1 in 6, because now when the Indians complain of racism in medical field also, that is they have to manage on their own. The if they are feeling racism, they need to speak up. So they say that the most of the lower, now I do not know medical profession, so please, I have a lot of doctor friends, please correct me if you're watching it, but my point is the lower, like the internal medicine is generally given to Indians. Now America has only one mantra: the duck which quacks the loudest gets the cracker. That's the mantra of America. And when the money talks, bullshit walks. This is a very famous movie line. Now, these two mantras, everybody knows. People who live here, they all know that how they have to compete and how they have to get their share by speaking about it. Complaining is not the American ethos. So if you complain, they are going to question you more. And I'm telling you, the losers have the American society is very rough for the losers. And if you complain, you actually say that you are a loser. Now the this important aspect is missed. And India also, if you are in India, India is a very competitive society. It's a fewer resources and large number of people. Like even in the entrance examinations, we know how much competition is there. Somehow we lose all that touch here over the years we have done. So is it, how do we bring it back? We cannot wake up, we cannot like somebody who's acting to sleep, we cannot put them to wake them up.
See, as I said in the opening statement itself, they have huge strength in terms of have one of the most wealthy community, in terms of most educated community, in terms of family system, which is the spine of Hindu society and Indian society, and also it's a very powerful lesson for Americans. And our spirituality, of course, if I leave out even the spiritual side, just the material side, there's so much of strength. They have to realize that, and they have to fight for their rights in sense of gaining the right kind of respect they deserve. And as you said regarding medical sciences, if they are 1 in 6, of course, they have a huge voice. And they're highly respected medical people, they're highly respected scientists. So this is all taken. But they have to wake up, in the sense they have to wake up to their strength. I'm not saying wake up. They are woken. They know about all this, but they have to wake up to the strength of being able to influence policies, of influencing the public narrative, which they have begun to do. But I think much more faster and much more firm actions are required from the intellectual leaders of US, of Indian origin and Hindu origin from across the continents, and also the academia where they are there. They have to start, being affirmative, being assertive, rather than just being, playing the victim card. Okay, Bandit did this, Audrey did this and that. So that doesn't work. So you have to stand up and you have to start speaking about your systems, your beliefs, your philosophy, and your knowledge systems.
Very well put it. Very well put it. And the another aspect is living in the Western world and thinking about Indian politics. You and I have spoken on that 5-6 programs we've done on this. And
in fact, if you had told me earlier that there is now there is effort in the US Parliament or Senate that they are trying to bring in a bill trying to identify Hindus as caste bigots. I would put it that way rather than a more strong words than what they have used. And why on this? Then US American Indians should not react very firmly and very aggressively. Something that there is no reason to do that. So that is something that they know is not correct. So speaking from here by people like me or others doesn't work. It has to be local Indians who stand up and say this nonsense must stop, and then expose them. There is enough material to expose what what whites, Caucasians have done to the other communities than trying to point fingers at Hindus in the way it is being done now. There was Dalit Afro Network, DFN or DNF something, which was started some years back by the church with the help of some disgruntled so-called low-caste people who actually converted to Christianity. I think Kanchaila is one of them, who started his DNF, the Dalit Afro Network. So, or Afro Dalit Network. You didn't give much time, so I don't have the right names, etc. now. And they started the movement years back. This was exposed by Rajiv Malhotra ji, but have Indians ever worked on that after that? And if that is the kind of alliance being made and trying to somehow equate the two, then it's high time we start thinking what is happening.
All these attempts are being made. Everybody knows, including the American lawmakers, know that these are political issues. It has no facts on the ground. But you cut politics with politics. You do not cut politics with a protest on the street, because protesting on the street has different ramifications, because it creates it's a different image. But
see, I believe on this issue, I believe that Hindu community should have a petition with large number of signatures, with the topmost intellectuals telling what it is. I'll just tell you one very enlightening story about what Varna Vyavastha was in India. There was a boy called Jabali. Jabali was son of a sex worker. The mother wanted him to get educated and become a rishi, in the sense a scientist or philosopher. So she sent her to a very great rishi. Rishi asked him, "What is your father's name?" He said very truthfully, "I don't know." And then he asked why. He told why he didn't know his father's name. And Rishi was so impressed by truthfulness that he educated him. He trained him. He became one of the biggest rishis, as Jabali Rishi is called. That is an example. We know about Valmiki already. Valmiki was of the so-called lowest Varna. But by sheer tapasya, sheer meditation, he rose to become a Maharishi. There are so many other examples. Guru Ravidas was a shoemaker, but he's respected by everybody in Hindu society. That is one. Point two is that Varna is not caste. Varna, as Bhagwan Krishna in Gita very clearly said, it based on nature, your prakriti, nature. It is not based on birth. And if somebody doesn't behave well, he's through. If you look at the theory of karma, when you read Gita, when he says that if you don't do this, you will fall back into a lower varna, into a lower human being, in fact, also animal. So the way you think, the way you react decides where you sit, where you reach. There was vertical movement across. When I give you examples, you realize that there was no hard bound partitions within varnas. It was your prakriti. If you're a shudra but you wanted to become a muni, you could work hard to become a muni. There was Vishwamitra who wanted from being called a Rajarshi to Brahma Rishi. He meditated, did a lot of tapas. After years and years, he finally was called Brahma Rishi, but he had to work for it, and he was a Kshatriya by birth. So many examples. I can't give all the examples, but karma decides your varna. Caste was thrown upon Indians by Portuguese. They wanted to map Portuguese caste system onto India, so their casta became caste. For us, jati is not caste. Jati is a community. In each varna or each society, there can be many jatis. This is basically based on your interest, your where you stay, your geography, your area of living together, etc. So, in fact, they were very strong strength in jati. They were not considered any libelous kind of jatis. So, you have the entire Tirupur belt, which is the biggest export of garments, belong to one particular jati. Same was true of Shettiars, Chettiars. Same was true of so many communities across India who work in the same profession, gain a lot of strength, and as a community they support each other and become very strong in that particular trade or business. So that was what jati was. It was never in terms of touchability, untouchability. We have 10,000 years of documented history. Touchability became a part of Hindu society just about 809 years back. Before it was not there. If that was not there, it was the distortion which was brought in due to invasion after invasion on the Indian societies and continuously fighting. Do we know that all the arms and ammunition was manufactured by Shudras, or what we call today Dalit is not Shudra? Because Shudra, every manufacturer, even farmer used to be Shudra who actually produced. It was somehow distorted into saying Dalits and all that, but these people were the warriors. In entire 800 years of struggle and fight against Turks, against Mughals, against British, these varnas, these Shudras or these tribals were all part of freedom struggle. They fought along with their kings. If they were thrown out of the society, as these people believe, why would they work with their kings? Those who were traitors were actually from the same varna. They were Kshatriyas generally, who actually were traitors of those particular kings who are fighting the invaders. So in our history, we don't talk about those freedom fighters. We don't talk about tribal leaders who all fought for freedom. So this effort to somehow divide these people away from Indian Hindu society is a game which was played long back. Actually, the identification of caste in India began in 1901 census of British. Before that, there was no firm ironclad caste system in India. It was just a kind of a floating and very porous kind of structure where people could move from one to another. And that caste system got frozen after 1901 census of British. That is when they asked your caste. They didn't know. They were asked their religion. They didn't know, because Hindu was Hindu. Then this effort to divide them on the faith system, which there are hundreds of faith systems within India, effort to put a partition in their all society through defining their caste. That is how caste got embedded in India. It was not embedded by Hindus or embedded by British. And this was a result of slavery, where it got frozen, where a lot of distortions happened. But look at India. We Indians, we Hindus fought against all the distortions in the society. Nobody else did for us. From Ram Mohan Rai to everybody others, they were the ones who stood up and said this must go. And social reformers, right from Guru Nanak times, or even before that, all those saints, they fought against this distorted Varnavastha, against this untouchability, this higher and lower caste. So this society itself is strong solution. We in Constitution made a law that you cannot have very strong laws. You cannot practice casteism or untouchability. And whom are they comparing? They are comparing with the people who are imported from Africa, from various other part of the country, from even India, and taken to USA as slaves. And they justified the slavery through their own religious text. They justified saying it's white man's burden. So whether the natives of USA or the blacks who were brought from Africa, they were brought in horrendous conditions. They were exploited. Slavery was legal in USA just about 150 years back, if I remember correctly, even after Constitution was passed. On one side, you have this hard-coded justification of slavery, of black slavery, of killing natives in the name of Bible, of trying to enlighten people, trying to ennoble people in the name of religion, and killing them if they don't agree with the point of view. So those people who are killed and oppressed in the name of religion, in the name of Bible by these whites, if they try to now tell them, even blacks today are fighting for the rights. Do we in India have that problem? No. Our caste people are suffering on the basis of caste. They use constitution. They assert themselves. They come in power. They don't talk of victimhood. They stand up and fight for the power because constitution has strengthened them. Society has strengthened them. Hindus have agreed that the mistakes have been made. They are reforming it. But US society took much more longer time to give justice to native Indians, to give justice to blacks. Otherwise, Black Lives Matter won't be still alive. Because racism is something very different. We Indians, whether I am of any caste, any jati, any varna, whatever you call it, we have the same DNA. Nobody was pushed into India using force and made into slaves. Das is not slave. So this is the scenario where we belong to the same stock, did wonderfully well together, but lost way somewhere and trying to reassert our original glorious traditions and complete dharma which treated everybody equal, with people who till a few years back were justifying slavery, justifying their discrimination against blacks, whether it was in India or Africa or America. They don't need to teach us lessons, and there is no comparison between the racist exploitation of Africans and native Indians and other colonies as per what we have in our society. We will take care of what distortion came, but our country never supported this. That is the difference. Our dharma never supported it. Our religious text never supported it. Our saints never supported it. So that is the basic difference why these people have to understand they need not teach us lessons.
No, you said it so well, because the racism and slavery, they are being the bane of the Western civilization, whether it's a Middle Eastern origin or European origin, and also American also, because the
See,
slaves.
people quote Manusmriti. Manusmriti is just one of the 20 smritis, and no smriti was taken as law. It was just code of conduct created by a particular rishi at that time, and Manu himself said, I can be overwritten by anybody else as the time changes. Mine is the final word. Then Yagyavalkya Smriti came, which was different from Manu. And Manu was written thousands of years back. What was Western world thousands of years back? Savage. I use a very strong word, but I have no other way. When they try to condemn Hindus, I have no other way but to speak very strongly. They started with 4 basic 10 do's and don'ts, which are part of our very basic dharma. We were much beyond that. 2,800 years back, 6,000 years back, we had Buddha and Mahavir or Jain Dharma, which defined entirely. They went beyond this code of conduct. Our Vedas went beyond code of conduct. We went on to see how we can reach the pinnacle of spirituality and gain moksha, gain nirvana, which was not a word in the vocabulary of the West. So if they have to learn this. They have to recommend this rather than talking of some, like, Gandhi said, Mahatma Gandhi said that it is a gutter inspector's report. So let them not look into gutters, let them look at the mountains and hills and wonderful verdant forests we have created in terms of ideologies and thinking.
Absolutely, because the burden of proof is on the Western people, not on us, because
Yes.
we don't have to prove that ourselves, because
See,
our.
the day Aditya ji, these people call our scholars, Hindu scholars from India, saints and sadhus from India, to talk about Hindu Dharma, to expound on Hindu Dharma in academics with the students. Only then we will have the right image. If the others who don't even understand the basic DNA, the basic thinking process of Hindus, if they try to interpret Hinduism for us, then we can never get justice. If those people are challenging Hindu Dharma and Indian ideologies, they must allow our people to have a say what is said in academics, what is being taught to students. I said earlier, whether they have Christians telling what is Islam, whether they have Hindus telling us what is Christianity. No, because as a person, I imbibe certain feelings, I imbibe certain emotions, I imbibe certain knowledge system through my DNA, in which I can understand the words, I can understand the idiom of our philosophy, which they cannot. They cannot map a exclusive religion with an inclusive religion. They
True.
cannot map the issue of fallen and faithful and the fallen onto us. We don't have that concept. How can they? So that is where the problem starts.
That's right. See, the problem in the American universities, and I think Indian Americans know that very well, that most of the Hindu studies department are led by Christian pastors. Now,
Yeah.
there is not a single protest by the Indian Americans on that. So if they accept that, they would rather accept this also. So if they, so
Yeah, as you very
selective
well know,
outrage is not good.
to see, to research on Hindu dharma or any philosophy in US universities, you must follow Wendy Donegal school, you must follow Audrey Tushke. Otherwise, there is highly big chance that you will end up a loser. You will not be allowed to do the research, and you will not gain your grades. I know of a child of a Hindu parent there who resigned out of sheer frustration. I could there be a lot more examples. I know one person I'm talking about that.
So it's
So
a
that cannot
system.
be allowed. So those who call themselves Hindu by name are only Hindu by name because to gain their favor with the Wendy and other schools of thoughts, they will go by their masters, because otherwise they will not be allowed place in the academies. They will not allow all the perks of the office or the perks of being an academician. So they have sold their soul. As Rajiv Malhotra ji put it, they're brown sepoys.
The brown sepoys, I think he put it very well. It's a strong word,
Dr.
but it is right.
Kripal, who wrote abusive analysis of Ramakrishna Paramhans, is a Hindu by name, but he worked that way because he was a pupil of Wendy Doniger. They never refer to the discussion they had with the Swami of Ramakrishna Mission. They had their own interpretation from God knows where. Should I start analyzing their own gods and their own angels, their own sayings with psychological tools and tell them what they are doing? In fact, they are part of history. We don't even discuss that. So they have to give it respect. That is what Swami Vivekananda said. It has not yet happened, and that has to happen. For that, Hindus in America have to stand up and assert themselves.
True, very, very true, because they have to do it. And I think they are repeating the mistake of 1901 in the US, where the US government is going to implement caste system in the US. And I hope it applies to all Americans, not just
Are you
Hindus.
saying that in the name of progressivism, they are going to get into regressive regulation, which will give caste identity to people in US who have no caste identity?
Exactly.
I challenge you, if your children know what is their caste or varna, any Indian, I challenge them to ask their children, and all these politicians are talking about it, whether there are varna, because there is no varna or caste even in Indian, urban centers anymore, except the political class or the political exploitation. Same is true of USA. So then, should you are trying to go regressive and put the society, Hindu society, which is egalitarian, into a mold, they will go back to regression, and you will try to push that identity onto the children of the Indians there. That is the most regressive thing they can do.
Well, progressivism is the euphemistic term for actually regressivism. So when they say they're liberal, actually they're not liberal, they're tyrants. So when they say they're progressives, that means they're showing they're communists. So communism is today glorified as progressivism and liberalism in North America. I think that's a translation directly coming through. And expecting a villain to do a hero's role is foolishness. So here, Indians have to be smarter. And when we talk about the 1901 census, which you said rightly, Harpert Hope Pricely. Now, I challenge the American, whosoever is designing this law and building this petition. So, are you calculating width of nose and height of nose and length of nose before deciding who belongs to which category anthropologically? That means you are bringing back racism in the country again. And I
You know,
think
the
blacks,
first one to challenge this index of nose as the identity of race, Aryan race, was Dr. Ambedkar,
Dr. Ambedkar, that's right.
the Dalit icon,
Yes.
who said, "I will not die as a Hindu," because he tried his best. He was not given due respect in the society. He said, "I will not die as a Hindu," but he did not choose Christianity and Islam, despite all the lure given to him, all kind of efforts to give him some kind of what you call lure to get into Islam. In fact, Hyderabad Nizam offered him money, directly money. Church offered him so much of respect. You bring them this and that, but he said, "I will not choose a religion which is not Indian in roots." And I finally chose Buddhism. He also studied Sikhism, saying this is where Nirvana is, and my followers will not lose the roots of Indian society, Indian traditions. And that man challenged, the first one to challenge Aryan invasion theory was a Dalit leader, whom we call Dalit today. So despite all the efforts, he was the one who said the index of nose as identity. I mean, how ridiculous can you get? Despite all the DNA results now, all the scientific research saying every Indian belongs to the same race, we keep on hammering that in India because it's politics, outside India because it suits them to somehow hammer the Hindu society. I think you need to take training class for all the Hindus in America and tell them the true nature of Hindu dharma and all these theories that are happening there. And Rajiv is doing a lot, but I think more people need to do it at a very common general level, not a scholastic level that everybody may not understand, but a very basic level, that is what their identity is. That is what the fallacy of all these theories that are being pushed onto their head is.
For last 15 years, Sattology has been organizing events every day, morning and evening on Hindu Dharma. There's
Yeah.
15 years. So it's going on for last 15 years. And but the challenge is something else, and we'll discuss it offline. But here we will just conclude this part. The new administration has created a feel good factor for people who live on the social media only. So people who are on the social media, so you have daily posts coming out from the leadership, and this how what we are doing, we are creating this job, and there is no fact checker for them. Everybody else is a fact checker, but not for them. So what is happening is like I am the judge, the jury, the victim, and also the oppressor, all four of them combined into one. And the biggest worry is that nobody is talking about it. We know why. The reason is Americans have given up, and I can say about other countries also, they've given up. But now the renaissance has to start from the Indian American community or Hindu origin community, because they have to start speaking up. They have seen the horrors of this getting repeated again here in this country. The responsibility is on them.
I close on one comment. You know, Professor Rajendra Singh, or we call Raju Bhaiya, was the fourth Satsang Chalak of RSS. He was talking to nuclear scientist from UK, Professor Naval Kant Prinja. And he said, he was just discussing with Raju Bhaiya that people who know Sanskrit, the scholars who know Sanskrit, do not know science. And people who know science do not know Sanskrit. So in India, that is a serious problem. Because in India, education does not treat Sanskrit and science as a similar subject or integrated approach. They treat them differently. So when will it happen that, there will be synthesis of Sanskrit and science and knowledge system? And Raju Bhaiya said, you are expecting a new Swami Vivekananda. He said it will happen, but it is possible that it will happen from Hindu Indian from outside Bharat. So that is the liberalism, that is the openness that Raju Bhaiya said, that maybe possibly Indians living overseas, they will produce a new Vivekananda, new Swami, Maharishi Aurobindo. So we are so open-minded. We don't claim to have ownership, or we don't claim to have that only Hindus in India can do it. Anybody outside. So what you are doing is something what Raju Bhaiya said, I think somewhere in 1990s.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ratanji. I think we can live up to that mark, to the words of Raju Bhaiya and Sar Sangh. And I think we'll see what we can do. But thank you so much, Ratanji, for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And for people who are watching this show, do comment on it, and it will be live to the college campuses tomorrow morning. And you can all watch it over there too. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaskar.